Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for more of the Real Housewives of Canton. Hope you're all doing well. I was playing around with the settings on my laptop, and as it turns out, my microphone is currently at 38%. Yes, well, Blanders, the intro is designed to be loud. There's a reason for that. Actually, to be fair, I have no idea why it's quite as loud as it is, but I mean, I've been meaning to revamp it anyway, so we'll see how we go. But just a warning, I'm going to try and up the volume on my microphone, so headphone warning in case any of you are listening and it's sleep time or whatever the hell else. How was the poke stew? It was actually delicious, which, given how badly I fucked it up, test my microphone. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I got no idea if that's overly loud or whatever else. Where's the headphone warning for your intro? I don't get a choice with the intro video. It automatically plays when I go live. You know, bitch and moan about it. I'll see about fixing some of the gain on it, all right? All right, so we're heading back into the... I sound fine? So why the fuck is it so... Like, I upped it to 55%. So I'm not sure if maybe it's so that... I don't know. We'll see how we... Point is, if any point you feel like you can't hear me over the video, or if I need to put it up or whatever, just tell me, because I can. But in the meantime, we are back in Judge Bev's courtroom. And Brennan is in the middle of his cross of the Delta V first witness for the defense. So let's see how this pans out, shall we?
And gigabytes. And then you asserted, or you took the position in your affidavit, that there should be no further...
Oh, that's right. This guy was taking the piss out of... was it Burgess or Walcher that got the megabytes and megabits mixed up? And Brennan's scrambling to explain that.
Chip lock, no further study of those chips, other than to ensure the amount of memory was sufficient. It's not how I recall specifically what I said. Well, let me read, because I don't want to try to align your words. Please. Mrs. Burgess' proposed protocol labeled, "We attempt chip-off acquisition is unnecessary because the file size of the acquisition formed by Ms. Gaffney already matches the expected memory storage capacity of the components." That sounds accurate. If you want to see this, I don't want to read from the document. If you need to see if it actually, just let me know. That's fine. I trust your reading. However, an acquisition may be conducted for the sole purposes of ensuring the contents of the memory chips have not been altered since the last testing by recording the checksum. Yes. Did it cross your mind at that point that there was important data in those modules that was not seen or recovered or obtained by Ms. Gaffney?
Oh, yeah. YouTube's trying to follow along the lines of Twitch and Terry $bucks. So depending on how much you chat now, you gain XP in YouTube chat. It resets every stream, and you get a little crown next to yourself if you're watching long enough and you chat long enough. So, who's this new nerd? So we're officially onto the defense case. So we actually like this guy. And I say that because he's not a condescending prick, and he definitely knows what he's talking about. So,
no. Did you want to know when Mr. Burgess was looking for more data, more information, what he thought was missing? He stated, I think, in his report or affidavit, I'm not sure what it was, but he stated what he thought was missing was there was a physical size difference. So he thought there was not corrupt data, but just missing chunks of data. Log line information, you've heard of that. Ignition on, ignition off information. Yes.
in an infotainment system. That's important information when you're reconstructing an accident, isn't it?
It could be.
Well, you read information in this case. Pretty important in this case, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
And so you would not want to engage in that process without this pretty important information, would you?
Which process?
Of an accident reconstruction?
Sorry, so can you restate it, the whole question? Yeah.
You said you had.
Yeah, Brennan, you made an absolute dog's breakfast out of that. For starters, this guy isn't there for accident reconstruction. He was there to poke holes in your expert's report, which he's done quite masterfully, if you ask me. And it was very easy to tell that he got under your skin quite early, and you got pissy about it. So,
Have some experience in accident reconstructions.
Yes.
Don't you want all the data available? The more data, the better.
Generally, yes.
You wouldn't want to ignore data on purpose, would you?
there was no additional data.
I mean, the data analyst, the more data, the more you get to look at.
Yes.
And so the power log on information that actually has date and time is critical in an accident reconstruction, isn't it?
In some accident reconstructions. In some, there's no debate about when a vehicle was on or off, but if there is, then yes.
Not just on and off. The power log on and off gives you the date and time that you can match with the texturing data, correct?
Yes, it does.
You know, texturing data itself doesn't have date and time.
It can, this vehicle didn't. It can, but this vehicle did not.
And this had a running time instead. Like
That's correct.
So this data that was not found during the initial process, that was critical data at the time.
I don't think prior to the process, anyone knew that this particular Lexus infotainment system stored those key on and key off times.
Right. The only person that found this out was Shannon Burgess.
He found it in the process, but I don't think anybody knew in advance of this case. There was nothing out there about it. So to my knowledge, this is the first time that this specific data has ever been released into the wild.
But it was on the board there. If someone knew what to look for or got creative, they could maybe find it.
Brennan, stop trying to sound like your expert did something great here. He stumbled ass backwards into something, and he still wasn't a great expert for you. Stop trying to make him sound like he's high and mighty and more credible than this guy. Seriously.
Yes. More so to your if got creative, because I don't think anyone would have been able to have the foreknowledge that there would have definitely been that.
Shannon Burgess did.
Sustained. I'll strike it.
And when Shannon Burgess went to obtain that data that everybody else overlooked or didn't know about, you went with him.
Yes.
So you had a process where he was going to now control the data and take the information that was left behind and remove it from the infotainment board, correct?
He actually never specified anything about the SD card in that initial notice. So it was a departure from his protocol, and it was a little surprising to me when I got there that the protocol was written with a specific focus on a number of other chips. And it became very apparent to me very quickly that the focus was not on those chips, and the focus was on this SD card that had previously been unmentioned. There was nothing in there about that prior to that.
Did it offend you, or were you impressed that he had found that?
I was a little confused because I went into it with an expectation. Generally, if we write a protocol, we adhere to the protocol. If we're going to deviate, we have a discussion.
Why the fuck would you be offended that someone fucked up and still managed to make an omelet? Like, oh yeah, I was supposed to be making scrambled eggs, but I fucked up and turned it into an omelet. You still got the end result eventually.
About deviations. So I was just surprised. It's not customary to sort of shift out of nowhere. But other than that, I did not know what to think of it because I'd never heard of that.
Did you give any input? Did you have any knowledge about the SD card and how it worked?
No.
So when you watched Mr. Burgess remove the SD card, did you appreciate he'd have to engage in what you call reverse engineering?
He did not elaborate to me exactly what his whole process was at first. It sort of came out as time progressed through the first day in his office in Texas. And then I learned more as we moved to the second testing in Massachusetts. But he didn't explain it to me in one go.
Did you, at that point, understand or appreciate the relevance of the SD card?
It all worked out in the end, and it was delicious.
And what it could do as far as the amount of information that could then be available?
He never spoke throughout the 3 days at all about what kind of data he expected from the card or would be on the card or could be. He made no mention of the data.
Lied about his credentials and did the math wrong, end of story. Yeah, pretty much. And at the end of the day, it sounds like he was trying to be a little bit dodgy with the other side experts as well, which you expect a prosecution witness not to cooperate fully with a defense expert witness. But at the same time, if you are deviating from the standard norm, you kind of feel like there has to be a little bit of scrutiny. Like,
Not what he said to you, but given your expertise, did it ever dawn on you the significance or importance of this SD card that was sitting in plain sight?
Objection.
Sustained. You can ask it to.
Did it ever dawn on you that Mr. Burgess was recovering this information left behind, that there was something important or significant about it?
At the time, I thought it was a possibility. If you reference the initial work, a number of different memory components were identified in this infotainment. There isn't a singular memory chip. So if we're looking for data, it could be in any of them. So we found a new source of data storage, and there could be something there. There could be nothing there. It was unknown to me.
But it turned out there was.
There was.
Now, when you were watching Mr. Burgess work as an expert, if you felt like there was something inappropriate or he had
Good
some great
morning, Doc.
oversight, you could write a report about that, couldn't you?
I could.
Did you ever write any report in this case?
No.
So you never wrote a report for your preparation of coming.
He wasn't engaged to write a report. He was engaged to poke holes in yours.
In your data in the PowerPoint presentation, right?
Correct.
You never wrote a report regarding any of your observations of Mr. Burgess.
Correct.
You said that he didn't say anything. He spoke to you quite a bit during the process, didn't he?
He did.
He showed you what he was doing.
He did.
He explained to you what he was doing.
He explained the process. I think you had asked me earlier about whether he explained the data, and he didn't.
He demonstrated great proficiency, wouldn't you say?
No.
He ended up with a successful acquisition of the card at the end of the process.
When you are considering all your equations,
That was a really polite way of saying he fumbled around and he fucked up, but he got there in the end. That's hilarious.
you consider the timing information taken from the SD card that Mr. Burgess found regarding power on and power off of that car?
Yes, to the extent that he considered it in his own report. Again, I'm referencing his report.
But how about you? You're coming in here giving an opinion saying what's better or best practice or right. How about you? Did you consider, you personally, the one who's giving the opinions, did you consider the significance of the power on, power off data as it relates to all these times?
Yes.
Yes? You sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I considered it. If that's the question is, did I consider it? I considered it.
Did you do any study yourself?
No.
Now, we agree, or you agree, that there are variances between different devices.
Yes.
So a Lexus clock that comes from the infotainment system is very common that it would be different than a different device like an iPhone.
Specifically this Lexus, I don't
Back
know
to
if
the
we can make the statement that it's common or not, because again, this is the only time that I know of that this specific data has been analyzed. So I don't know the answer to that question.
Did you say on direct examination that variances between devices are common?
Variance between devices are common.
In a variance of 45 seconds, that wouldn't be remarkable on
No.
different devices. It's common in the industry.
Correct.
And in your business, that's an accepted amount.
I'm not sure what you mean by accepted. The amounts are what they are, and we have to correct for them. I've done analyses of clocks that are anywhere from completely correct, 1 second off. I've done analyses of clocks that are 25 years apart. So it's a wide range of
I
possibilities.
understand your point.
Yeah.
If you see as an analyst a 45-second variance or 30-second variance, that wouldn't shock you, would it?
No amount of variance would shock me, is the answer.
Yeah, that's really what he's trying to boil down to. It doesn't matter how bad the clocks are out. If you can tie them both to a specific event, you can work backwards or work forwards. I really hope that the jury is understanding how much of a dick Brennan is.
I want to ask you questions and go through your PowerPoint. And I want to ask you your specific opinions and how you arrived at certain claims that you've made.
Sure.
Okay? If we could put up Mr. DeSorga's new PowerPoint, 52525. You've made a modification to your PowerPoint.
Yes.
You've made an amendment to your PowerPoint.
Yes.
So there was something that happened. You received new information or new data, and you updated or changed your PowerPoint.
I did.
And that's an appropriate thing.
Oh, that's seriously what you're using this guy to try and rehabilitate Burgess and Welcher? Are you serious?
To do when you receive new information, isn't it?
Yes.
If you have new data, you don't want to leave it behind. You want to make the best presentation with the best data you can.
I'd want my presentation of the data to be as accurate as possible, so I included all the data.
And you would expect that.
And yet, Welcher, fucking Burgess's PowerPoint was still a crock of shit. I used spell check.
from any expert, wouldn't you? If they received new information or analyzed new data and it was important, it would be inappropriate.
I love that he's trying to gloss over the fact that he had a telephone conversation with his witness and his witness miraculously deleted information from the PowerPoint. And he's trying to use the defense witness to say that. Jackson better address that, Henri. That's all I'm saying.
Best practice to update the PowerPoint or information they're providing, wouldn't it?
I'm going to allow that.
Of course you are.
I don't know if I would tell other experts what their best practices are. I would say, generally, as experts, we do work that our clients ask us to do. So if we're asked to do it, we do it. If our clients say, hey, don't do that, we don't do it.
Well, you like the phrase best practice on direct, so I'm just wondering if I can borrow that phrase.
He basically just said, well, Burgess wouldn't have updated his report if you hadn't asked him to. Oh, damn. Ooh, you want some aloe vera for that, Brennan? Ooh.
Phrase.
Sustained.
Okay. We can turn to page 2. Now, this is taken from Dr. Welcher's report.
Yes.
And again, you did no testing whatsoever. You just
I
read
did
reports. Did you read all of Dr. Welcher's data, the gigabytes and gigabytes of data? Did you go through it all?
Not every slide, no.
Not just the PowerPoint. I mean the actual massive amount of data in his study. Did you go through the data?
Oh, no, I didn't look at any of the data.
Did you ever speak to Dr. Welcher?
No.
And so when you are making assumptions on what he thought or how he analyzed, you're just guessing.
No, it's based on
I
the
am
report.
looking at what Dr. Welcher put in his trial presentation, and my assumption that's baked in there is that he's going to stand behind the things he says in a presentation. So I'm taking them at face value but as being correct.
It's not a matter
I'm
of
not guessing.
It's not a matter if he's going to stand behind it. You don't know why he put something in here. You just see it on the paper.
He
You don't know his
doesn't
thought
need
process.
to. Oh, for fuck's sake. He doesn't need to. All Jackson needs to get up and say is, you were engaged to review and critique the work conducted by the prosecutor's expert, weren't you? So it was not actually necessary for you to conduct any of your own research. It was more to analyze and determine whether or not the prosecution's expert had done what they were supposed to, weren't you? Yes. Thank you. That's all.
This was, did you?
To an extent, yes, because I understand how the exemplar testing by Aperture laid the foundation to align the key-on events in the infotainment to the Lexus VCH events.
When Dr. Welcher made his PowerPoint, do you know whether or not he was relying on 154 on Mr. O'Keefe's phone, stamp 154, as the end of the event as opposed to the beginning of the three-point turn, 1162-1?
Based on the math he uses, that's the implication. He puts a number on the screen that the only way you could reach that number is by making that assumption. So when I looked at the math, yes, that assumption seems baked into the math he did.
So this seems like it's baked in that he was assuming 154 on John O'Keefe's phone was the end of the three-point turn.
Not on this slide, on a later slide, but yes.
Okay. And you said that variances, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, they're very common when you're comparing two different devices, right?
Yes.
Okay. Turn to the next page, please. You point out two
guy's
times for the
very
jury. The
used to
Lexus event, 1162-2 ends 12:31:43, right?
Yes.
And that's based on the clock in the infotainment system.
That time is based on two things: the clock in the infotainment unit and the cumulative key-on timer in the text stream data. So it's a combination of two values.
Which is the running clock.
Correct.
Right. And that is compared or contrasted or coordinated with the log on off time that was found on the SD card. Yes?
Yes.
And without that SD card, we wouldn't have that time now, would we?
Correct.
Okay. 12:32:09 isn't something you analyzed, but you just read in the report that is information from Ian Whiffen suggesting or taking the position that was the last user interaction John O'Keefe had with his cell phone, 12:32:09.
That's how I understand it. There was a phone lock at 12:32:09. I did not look into the underlying reports from where that came.
And you know those are two different devices, two different clocks that will have a variance.
Yes.
You mentioned trigger event, and you said that your preference is to, when you're doing times, to point it from the actual trigger event, and there was a little slap for emphasis to target you on that, right? The trigger event. That's not a standard practice or a protocol that is supported by any type of literature, is it?
It's the methodology I teach, especially in the class I teach on the analysis of heavy vehicle data. We have the exact same problem with heavy vehicles. They all have clocks on them. And so in fact, I do a lot of clock adjustment on heavy vehicles relative to other sources. And the way I teach it, I'm not the only instructor, collectively, the way we all teach it is we generally start the analysis at the trigger, which is not to suggest you have to do that. It's not wrong to do it a different way, but that would be let's call it the default methodology.
The default methodology, do you have any professional literature that says that is the best time to start the analysis?
The textbook.
Not literature. I mean, that's sort of my opinion, because that introduces the least amount of variables. Once you start trying to align events off of subsequent times, you just introduce more addition and subtraction or math you have to do. So it's easiest to do T0 and align everything from there.
If you're lining up the end of one event with the end of another event, it's more coordinated than if you take it from different spots, isn't it?
That could be a scenario where then you wouldn't use it. Right. Like I said, it's not the only way, but it's the default way.
I don't disrespect your method, but there are other ways to do it that are just as legitimate as the trigger now.
Absolutely. And that's why I didn't change the convention here. I used their convention,
so you're
apertures.
Not suggesting that Mr. Burgess was being misleading by choosing the endpoint when he pronounced that's exactly the point he was considering, are you?
No.
And so the word cherry picking, you're not saying he was cherry picking, are you?
I don't remember the context in which I used the word cherry picking, but I don't think it was with respect to a trigger alignment.
So there's no legitimate professional basis of suggesting your way is better or worse than going from the front or the end of the event?
No.
So you're not offering criticism on that. So just so I understand it.
Not criticism. I pointed out that it's not typical, and I pointed out not even to say specifically that it's not typical, because even that, to your point, might sound critical. I just want to be clear that I adopted their convention. It's not the way I would have done it, but I kept that convention consistent in my analysis. So I wasn't changing in the middle, trying to obfuscate what I'm saying.
I appreciate that. So if someone's looking end to end, you're not going to add 5 seconds. It's if someone went from middle to end.
Could you give me that?
Yeah, you were suggesting those questions about, well, since you're looking at the end instead of the middle, then you got to add another 5 seconds on. That's not really an accurate analysis if you're looking at a comparison from end to end. You wouldn't then add the 5 seconds to the time to trigger because you're starting at the end from both devices. Objection.
I'm going to allow it if you can answer it in that form.
It's going to depend on if you're doing an alignment with something that is a range of values, then you have to be consistent on where you're doing it. If you're doing discrete points, then that's just a single point in time. There's no beginning or end. It's just a single second. So the best answer I can kind of give is it depends on what you're doing.
Well, in this case, you're basing it off the end of the event, the end, not trigger the end, comparing it comparatively to the end of a different device. So you wouldn't just add 5 seconds just for the heck of it.
You would not add 5 seconds for the heck of it.
He didn't have 5
You
seconds.
see 12:32:09 minus 12:31:43, the middle line equals 26 seconds. Isn't that in Dr. Welch's slides before, let me phrase it more cleanly. Before Shannon Burgess analyzed the data more closely on May 8th, in his May 8th report, isn't this the exact difference in time that Dr. Welcher cites in his PowerPoint, 26 seconds?
I'll sustain it in there.
Did you see, when you reviewed reports, that Dr. Welcher uses this exact number, plus 26 seconds in his report?
I got the number from the PowerPoint. Not the report, but that is all of the numbers here on this slide are from Dr. Welcher's PowerPoint. And on the previous slide, I show that. So these are all just copied straight from that.
And you've labeled this John's interaction window.
I did.
Okay. Interaction window. Do you think it might be confusing when you use interaction window to make it seem like the event was limited to 10 seconds?
No, and that's not the implication there at all.
That's not what I'm trying to say.
That's not what I'm trying to say.
Fair enough.
If I can clarify what I mean by interaction window is that there's
Please do.
a range of times that we end up with when we start running these adjustments. So we never land on a singular point of alignment. We end up, like I showed at the end, with 30 points. That's the window that I'm talking about. That's the window that I mean.
So if we could put up page 33 from Dr. Welcher's PowerPoint, just to illustrate the point you're trying to help us with. Would you like to add a little more? So this represents, you've seen this, right?
It looks familiar, like it's from one of his slides. And if I've seen it, I did not spend a lot of time digging into it.
Does this look like the 10 seconds of data that would be
Wasn't worth
captured
my time and effort.
from a triggering event in a text stream data session?
I want to see you at sidebar.
See, I'm not sure if it's just that Brennan's trying to act stupid or if he really is stupid or if he's just trying to confuse the jury. But the simple fact of the matter is that after he sat down and did the math that Shannon Burgess didn't do, he wound up with those 30 different points, 27 of which were after the end of the trigger event. Like, there's no way that this is going to end well for Brennan. Because I refuse to believe that he's as much of a stooge as his haircut leads people to believe. Like, I know people don't generally come to me here for, like, proper legal analysis, but I feel... Damn, that fence is down. Uh-oh. There's a lot of sheep in a paddock that they're not supposed to be in. So you vote that he is stupid and confused himself, which is how he can confuse the jury. Maybe. I mean, look. Simple fact of the matter is, this guy is very believable. He is very clearly knowledgeable about what he's saying. And he's not talking in doublespeak, which I really hope the jury are taking notice of. There's one or two questions that if I was Brennan, I might ask. But I'm curious to see whether or not he gets there. Damn, that is a sidebar and a half. Not that I should be surprised. Seriously, they went straight to lunch? Oh, fuck you. Doesn't respond like he's talking to a moron. Look, that's a fair call. God damn, who at Court TV decided that they'd start using hold music during lunch? I mean, remember when they used to at least, like, break in and show the news and that kind of crap or whatever else? Oh, I disagree, Val. I think he's trying to insult Brennan's intelligence on occasion, but I think he's being very coy about it in a way that makes it believable that he's just trying to be helpful. And we're back. Yes, I agree. He's not trying to insult the jury.
Turn to page 6 of Mr. DeSorga's amended PowerPoint presentation. Sir, I want to ask you about your opinions, and inevitably, some of the slides that you've presented to this jury regarding adjusting the clock in a time period of 3 seconds. You have given an opinion that there's a difference that you see in the reports between when the defendant's Lexus is powered on and the infotainment system begins, correct?
Yes.
There's a 3-second difference on the exemplar vehicle between when the power is turned on and then the screen lights up, the ignition, the infotainment system.
The 3 seconds I'm referring to is the timestamp in the data from the SD card. So I'm referring to the timestamp in the SD card. It seems that that's coupled to the screen, but I just want to make it clear I'm referencing the data from the SD card.
The data from the SD card correlates directly to the infotainment system itself.
The date does, yes.
Because the SD card is, with the other chips, part of the board that makes up the infotainment system.
Yes.
That infotainment system powers the screen that goes on after a user presses the button to start the vehicle.
Yes.
So the time that the infotainment system is registering is when the infotainment system goes on, not the power on event.
Correct.
So that 3 seconds that was tested with the exemplar vehicle between pressing the button to turn the car on and the time the infotainment system turns on, the infotainment system clock does not accommodate that 3 seconds.
Correct.
So when we're talking about time on infotainment system, we're talking about after the 3 seconds when the screen comes on.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the
Now
running
you've
clock
made some
is
slides and you've made some
followed by 3
assumptions
seconds.
suggesting that 3 seconds should be added to your analysis. And I want to ask you about your analysis regarding the 3 seconds. If we could turn to page 7, please. If you
Hello,
could
Pam.
zoom in on the left side. Sir, you told us that you didn't do any testing or data vetting yourself. You simply relied on reading and reviewing Mr. Burgess's report and Mr. Welch's report.
Correct.
And really,
It annoys me like fuck that he's sitting there going, oh, well, you're just relying on other people's information. Yes, because your experts provided that as expert testimony during the trial. If you're sitting there saying that he's not good enough to read and review your own experts' reports, maybe, just maybe your own experts were not good enough to be in this trial. Like, it's the fact that he's basically impeaching his own witnesses to get at this guy. It's sleazy.
the information you're reviewing is Mr. Burgess's report. There's only a few references in Mr. Welch's report where he cites Mr. Burgess's findings, correct?
Most of it is from Mr. Burgess's reports.
There's really nothing in any of Dr. Welch's reports that you are considering that is not in Mr. Burgess's report.
The .154 alignment methodology, I think exclusively is in Dr. Welcher's and is not present in Mr. Burgess's.
Did you read both of Mr. Burgess's reports?
Yes.
You're not aware that Mr. Burgess talks about that timestamp in his reports?
He mentions it in the second report to say that he doesn't think, basically he doesn't think Dr. Welcher should have aligned it on that.
That is exactly not what he said. Where in the report, where in his report does he say that Dr. Welcher should not have relied on 154? Where does it say that in his report? I have it here. If you can give me the page, we will take a look at it.
I don't know the page, and I'm paraphrasing. By no means am I conveying that as I'm directly quoting it, but I remember that as something I read in there.
Well, I was careful in your affidavit not to paraphrase you, right?
Sustained.
So when you just made that assumption or that suggestion characterizing Dr. Welcher's state of mind or thought process, is there anywhere in the report you can cite or show me where Dr. Welcher said that?
No.
Okay. When you read Mr. Burgess's report and you learned that he and others obtained an exemplar vehicle and did this testing, you have no other independent information to suggest that the power on, power off event and 3-second delay is inaccurate, do you?
I just want to make sure I heard you. Did you say accurate or inaccurate?
Inaccurate. I'm sorry, the fan's on. I'm trying to
I
show.
know that's the only reason I couldn't hear that. So can you state it one more time?
I'll rephrase it. When you reviewed Mr. Burgess's report and reviewed the information about his exemplar testing regarding the 3-second difference between turning on the car and the infotainment system going on, you have no other information that you looked at or studied that changes that analysis, do you?
No.
Now, when you are suggesting, could we shrink that and zoom on the right side, please? When you are suggesting that 3 seconds should be added to the time because of that 3-second gap, do you think maybe you made a mistake in considering it that way?
No.
Okay.
No.
The time that you're adding 3 seconds to is the infotainment.
Yes, because it's pretty fucking accurate. If the chip itself records the on-off time instantaneously in the chip, taking it from the clock or from somewhere else, the fact that it takes 3 seconds for the running clock to start needs to be accounted for, Brennan. It's basic math.
Infotainment time, the infotainment clock, correct?
Yes.
The infotainment clock begins when the infotainment system goes on. We just spoke about that, correct?
Right.
Which is 3 seconds after the power on event.
Correct.
So you're essentially double dipping. You're adding three. You're
How
adding
is he
3
double
seconds
dipping?
that has already been separated because it isn't reflected on the infotainment system. Isn't that true?
That's incorrect.
You believe
No,
that
that's the
3
exact
seconds
opposite.
between the power on and the infotainment system going on should be accommodated extra on top of it.
It's not that it's extra. It's because when we're talking about times here, we're pulling a time from the infotainment and we're marrying that with a key on timer from the vehicle control history. Those are separate systems. So if the vehicle control history had its own time, then what you're saying would be correct. We wouldn't account for any delays because then it's already baked into those numbers. But this is a very unique analysis. This is not something I've ever even seen, this type of analysis here where we're comparing a timestamp from an infotainment SD card to a VCH total time. And so the only way to reconcile those two is we have to align them. And the 3 seconds is the alignment between those because the VCH key on timer is going to start as soon as the vehicle is turned on. And that's the 3 seconds.
You've never seen this before.
Thank you.
I've never seen the approach taken here in this
I knew he
analysis
was gonna
by
latch
Aperture.
onto
That's what
that.
I meant by this. I'll clarify. I have not seen a timestamp from a key on event in a Lexus infotainment used in addition to the key on timer from that same Lexus.
You know, Mr. Burgess actually looked at the data, not just the timestamp. You looked at the data. You understand that, don't you?
Sure.
You did not, did you?
Which data?
The data for the timestamp on the text stream data.
There is no timestamp on the text stream data, is my point. It's a derived value from the key on time, and then added to that is the elapsed time from the text stream. So they're separate.
Did you look at the data to make that determination that you're claiming right now? Did you actually look at the data?
There is no data. You just said that.
Yes. Yeah.
You looked at the raw data?
I looked at, yes, the raw text stream data.
The raw text stream data from infotainment, did you look at it?
I just don't want to mince it. The text stream data is an independent system from the infotainment, and you said from, so
All right.
they're not.
Did you look at the infotainment raw data?
I did.
And did you find a timestamp on the infotainment raw data?
Yes.
Now, when you added 3 seconds, you were trying to, in addition to the infotainment data, you were adding on the 3 second delay that now you're saying might not even be accurate. Is that fair to say?
Good afternoon to you too, Gary.
I don't think I've ever said it's not accurate. I said that in the exemplar testing, they documented this behavior of a 3 second delay. And that needs to be accounted for if you're going to correct the timestamps. However, the caveat I put on that was only with one exemplar vehicle. So it could be that this behavior, the 3 seconds, is unique to the exemplar and would not apply to other similar vehicles. And so that's why I did either nothing or the 3, because there's nothing to support something in between.
So you disagree that the clock stamp on the infotainment module begins the run. You believe that there's potentially 3 seconds before when the ignition goes on that should be added to that time.
I know from testing.
It's really fucking straightforward. The answer is yes. Look, I don't know about you guys, but I have an infotainment system in my car. It's MG, it's Chinese, whatever the hell it is, I don't know. Point is, it's not Toyota, it's not Lexus. But even I know that when I start my car, there is a delay from when it starts up and starts, and presumably from when the running clock starts. I get that he has to be deliberately obtuse to try and confuse the jury, but the fact that he's doing it in this manner is doing my head in.
Other Toyota systems, that the key on timer happens almost at the identical time that the vehicle is turned on. That timer starts running basically immediately.
But on this case, you don't know anything firsthand because you didn't do the testing yourself.
I don't know if it would specifically apply to
No,
this Lexus.
your
I know that
experts did.
we're testing, but
And
not
you're
this specific
suggesting-
Lexus.
I'm sorry, finish.
No, just I'm clarifying. I do know that from other Toyota and VCH systems that key on timer is basically simultaneous with the key on. I have not tested it on this, and I don't believe that it was tested by Aperture when they had it either. They didn't document the accuracy of the run timer in their exemplar, so we don't know.
Well, you don't know that they didn't document that.
To be fair, if they did, it was
It's
not in their
any of
reports.
reports.
In this case, you said cars are different. And that's why you're hesitant to accept the fact that there's a 3 second delay. Is it a yes or no question?
I'm saying We don't know. If we had Aperture done testing with a separate vehicle, then we could establish, is the 3 seconds the same or is it unique? We don't know. The answer is we don't know.
And so when you are determining that 3 second variance, you don't have any
It
assurance
wasn't a large
in your
large
own
enough
mind
sample size.
whether or not this car, Miss Reed's Lexus, has a 3 second variance. That's what you're trying to say.
That's correct. And that's why I run my calculations with and without it.
And the way you would determine that is
Which is why, based on the information provided by your own experts, he had to make an assumption that there is a 3 second addition. Based on your own experts.
actually do testing or look at the data.
More testing, I think, is the only way that would be able to be determined.
Now let's turn to slide 9. As part of your charts, could you enlarge the left, please? As part of your charts, you took this chalk from Attorney Burgess's report, and you made some assumptions about this, didn't you?
I'm not sure.
Okay,
I
he didn't do the math.
applied the numbers in his third column to the times. So, I mean, that's the extent of the analysis.
When you looked at the first 5 columns, 1:14, 13 a.m., 4:38, 16 a.m., 4:42:06 a.m., 4:45, 12 a.m., and 5:04, 28 a.m. You said on direct examination, oh boy. You said on direct examination that was matching infotainment to iPhone.
That's what it says on the chart. So
Okay.
that's probably what I said. I don't remember specifically, but that's what the chart says.
Is that your opinion that those first 5 columns are matching infotainment to iPhone?
The chart says
That's what I
infotainment call
understand based
timestamp
on
in
the
column
reports.
1. It says O'Keefe iPhone call timestamps in column 2, and then it says offset. So I'm taking that at face value.
You're basing your later charts on the predicate that these numbers, the first 5 columns,
He's basing the chart on the predicate that your expert's report was accurate, which, to be fair, with the standard of the experts you showed, is suspect, but not for the reason that you're making it look.
are infotainment compared to John O'Keefe's iPhone, aren't you?
Based on the chart, yes.
You didn't do any study on your own to determine the genesis of that information, did you?
I'm aware of the fact that these calls, the 5 you mentioned, were placed when the vehicle was in a keyed off state. I'm aware of that.
What I asked you specifically is, on those 5 columns, did you do any research or study to determine whether or not it was infotainment matched to John O'Keefe's iPhone or some other phone matched to John O'Keefe's iPhone? Did you do any independent study about that?
No.
Because in your ultimate conclusions and all the charts you've given to the jury and shown the jury, it relies on the conclusion that the first 5 columns are a comparison between infotainment clock and John O'Keefe's iPhone. Isn't that fair to say?
That's exactly how the chart presents it, and that's how I present it.
Did you know that at 1:14:13 a.m. the defendant's Lexus was turned off?
Yes.
Did you know at 4:38:16 a.m. that the defendant's Lexus was turned off?
Yes.
And did you know 4:42:06, 4:45:12, 5:04:28? Did you know that her Lexus was turned off?
Yes.
Do you know that when you make phone calls, oh, by the way, do you know on those different times, the first 5 times, where that information is generated from?
Which column?
Left column, 1:14:13, all the way down to 5:04:28. Those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns. You know where that information came from?
It came from the SD card
No
from the
idea,
infotainment.
Megan.
You know where the genesis, the beginning, the source of that information, that matters, right? The source?
It would.
It would. You know where it came from.
The assumption, the assumption is if the vehicle has a timestamp,
In all seriousness, I appreciate people being here and watching this with me and watching me lose my shit. But I would genuinely, for the betterment of society, appreciate it if people that were in ridiculously late time zones get some sleep. Okay? Because you deserve it.
and the phone wasn't connected, it would have been synchronized after the fact. But that wasn't tested. And Aperture didn't do any of that testing in their work to look at the behavior of a timestamp in the infotainment when a phone is synchronized after the fact.
Blaming Aperture is not going to get you out of answering the question. Did you know?
Sustained.
Sure.
Yeah, he wasn't going to get away with that one.
Knowing the entire for numbers.
Definitively no.
your entire premise for your slides and values and ranges depends on knowing the genesis of those numbers, doesn't it?
I relied on Mr. Burgess's explanation that those times were synchronized after the fact.
Did you know that those are all phone calls from the defendant's phone to Sorky's phone?
Yes,
You did know that.
I know that they're phone calls
From who?
between. Sorry, can you maybe just state it more clearly? Because I'm not sure. I don't want to fumble through an answer if I don't understand the question. So,
Do you know where those calls came from? The source.
a phone,
Who?
Miss Reed's phone.
Now, I know you're not an expert on mobile devices,
source?
but you should know when it's not contemplated synchronization, you plug your phone in, it's going to register on the entertainment system, but come from the phone. Objection.
Sustained.
Do you know when someone plugs their phone in after they turn the car back on, how it synchronizes on the entertainment system?
I don't know if adjustments are made to those times during the synchronization or not. I think that's something that could be tested, and to my knowledge, was not tested.
If you don't know, then your conclusions and all your opinions to this jury is based on an assumption that you don't even know the predicate for. Isn't that fair to say?
My conclusions are based on all of the data that Mr. Burgess laid out. So he laid these out and went so far as to calculate the offsets himself. So there's something implied in his table by virtue of him calculating these that maybe he would decide to align them. And so, again, to provide the clarity on all the possible alignments, I included them. But that's not what I asked.
If you're making an improper assumption about the predicate, about these calls and the source of them, and you're wrong, that would change your entire analysis and conclusions and charts that we see in your later charts, wouldn't it?
Sure, if there was testing that showed that that is an invalid method on this specific Lexus and SD card, then of the 30 possibilities, some of them would end up being eliminated.
Did you know that when an iPhone is plugged into a car, it downloads the information from the iPhone on the infotainment system? Did you know that?
I don't know how the clocks are synchronized when you plug an iPhone into a car.
Well, if you don't know, how can you make conclusions based on a predicate you don't even know what it is?
The conclusions are based on the data.
The conclusions are based on the information and data that was included in the reports from your own witnesses.
In Mr. Burgess's report.
I know you're not an expert on mobile devices.
So I'm going to strike that. Go ahead.
No, Pixie, at this point, that's exactly what he's doing. He is legitimately cutting his nose off to spite his face. And I'm fully expecting Jackson's going to go in hard once he gets to redirect. I sure as hell would be. I'd be taking some absolutely monumental notes right now and working out exactly how to phrase my open-ended questions to get to exactly where I want to off of this. Because he's effectively going scorched earth on his own witnesses at this point. He's hoping that the jury's going to ignore everything that he's saying, basically. And it's just not going to work. I'm very sorry to hear that, Pam. Well, I shall absolutely do my best to try and help you attain a state of unconsciousness. Unfortunately, I don't know that Brennan's going to do this. When's the redirect? Hopefully not far off.
I'm going to ask you a question.
I apologize. If you have two different devices, a Lexus clock, the entertainment system, and an iPhone, you would agree that it's not unexpected to be variances, correct?
Correct.
When you're comparing two iPhones, do you have an opinion? Do you agree that you'd expect the variance to be very small, iPhone to iPhone?
I don't know.
Have you ever studied that before?
2 iPhones?
Yes.
No.
So if you sit there today, you don't have any expertise, any education, any knowledge about how closely two iPhones would sync with each other?
No.
Do you see in the first 5 columns the numbers are small, 2, 2, 1, 2, 1?
Yes.
Would you agree iPhone to iPhone using the same source of time is generally going to be within 1 or 2 seconds of each other? Objection.
Sustained.
Do you have any opinion about whether iPhones to iPhones will generally be within 1 to 2 seconds of each other? Objection.
You can ask if there's an opinion.
I have no
Do you
way
have
of
an
knowing
opinion
that.
on
No.
Next question.
If the first 5 calls are iPhone to iPhone rather than infotainment to iPhone, you agree with all of your assumptions and conclusions are accurate.
They're not
No.
iPhone to iPhone in the sense that column 1 came from the infotainment. These the values were read from the SD card. So there's an assumption baked into what you're saying, that when a phone is synchronized, the infotainment assumes the times of the phone, but we don't know whether the infotainment would adjust those times to its own clock or not.
You're speculating, aren't you?
We don't know. It wasn't tested. I don't know is the
You
answer.
don't know.
I don't know.
You don't know.
I do not.
Okay. Don't say we don't know. You don't know.
Sustained.
So this is iPhone to iPhone. Then your assumption was first off, 122.121. If they're iPhone to iPhone, and you're wrong about the fact it's infotainment to iPhone, your assumptions and conclusions are inaccurate, aren't they?
I'll allow this.
If the title of the first
Of
column
course.
had iPhone in it as well, then I would not have used it in my analysis.
But that's not the question. I appreciate that. My question is, if those first 5 calls were iPhone time to iPhone time, and you mistakenly analyze them as infotainment time to iPhone time, then the rest of your assumptions and charts.
If that were the case, then every bit of your actual experts' reports would be irrelevant as well. God damn! I hope Jackson gets up there and just via this witness tears Brennan a new one.
Would be inaccurate, wouldn't they?
Sustained.
At 5:21:36, do you know whether or not the defendant's Lexus was on?
I don't recall if that one was an on or an off point. I don't want to guess. I don't recall.
And so if you don't know if that was on or off, were you able to do an analysis whether this was phone to phone or infotainment to phone?
No.
5:30:31, do you know if the defendant's car was on?
That one I know the vehicle was on.
That's one timestamp on the infotainment system, 5:30:31, correct?
Correct.
And then in the O'Keefe iPhone call timestamps, there are 2 different numbers, 5:30:15, 5:30:52. Yes?
Yes.
Right. And do you appreciate that that is 2 separate calls, or do you think it's something different?
I'm going to paraphrase, again, Mr. Birch's report, as I recall it, in that he stated during the testing they did with the exemplar, calls placed in close succession would not necessarily both be logged in the infotainment. So as I understand this chart, what he's trying to say here is there were 2 calls placed, there were 2 call logs in Mr. O'Keefe's phone, but only one timestamp in the infotainment, and he couldn't determine which it corresponded to because of that observed behavior from testing.
I'm asking if you know.
I don't.
Did you ever look at phone records for the defendant or for Mr. O'Keefe to make a determination whether these are 2 separate calls or not? Did you ever do that?
No.
If
No,
these are
it
2
was outside
separate
the scope
calls,
of my engagement.
can you explain to us why there is one timestamp?
Again, as I stated, that was behavior that was observed. The exact behavior was observed during the exemplar testing by Aperture. I don't know why that happens. Why does the infotainment not log every call? I don't. But I know that it was documented that that is a feature of the system.
This information was not taken from the exemplar vehicle, was it?
This table, no.
This information was taken from the infotainment system of the defendant's car. Isn't that true?
Yes.
And the phone calls were taken from Mr. O'Keefe's iPhone. Isn't that true?
Yes.
And so, do you know why there would be 2 phone calls and only one timestamp?
Beyond the testing, the exemplar testing that showed an exemplar vehicle did that, no, I don't know why it happens.
Do you know that the infotainment system doesn't always capture all of the phone calls and the phone data in the download? Did you know that?
Yes.
Well, if you know that, can you conclude that even though there's 2 calls and only one timestamp, that's because how the infotainment system works?
I think that's the most logical assumption, that that's how it works.
So when you look at 5:30:15, right in the middle, and 5:30:52, it is impossible to tell which one relates to the 5:30:31 infotainment on the left. Compare. It's impossible, right?
Yes.
So there's 2 possibilities.
Yes.
One is that you have a difference, a disparity of 16 seconds.
Yes.
And the other one, going the opposite way, is a disparity of 21 seconds.
Correct.
Jesus.
And so when you add those disparities, you have 27 seconds disparity.
Fuck you, man.
Correct?
I'll allow that.
Is there a 27-second disparity when you compare the 2?
I'm not sure I understand the math.
5:30:31 is 16 seconds different than 5:30:15 on Mr. O'Keefe's phone. Yes?
Yes.
5:30:31 is 21 seconds different than the 5:30:15 phone call. Yes?
Yes.
And the difference is cut each way 1 times 1 call.
Correct. add those disparities, you get 27 seconds. Objection.
You can hear it in his voice. His witness is just done with Brennan. Yes. Yes. Yes.
I'm going to allow that.
No.
What do you get?
You're saying if, maybe, so I can be clear what you're asking, if we have a negative 16 and we have a positive 21, correct, how many seconds are in between there?
Exactly.
37?
And so you can see, did you know that the next card was turned on 5% negative? Does that ring a bell?
I don't have any of those key-ons committed to memory.
So you can see between 521 and 530, the offset is different between them, which shows that variances change. They move.
That seems reasonable, yes.
When I said it seems reasonable, do you have the experience and the knowledge to agree with me that variances move?
Yes, they do.
Okay. If those first 5 calls,
I'm pissed that my own experts fucked up and that you were poking holes in their case. So I'm going to have it out with you for using their data to make your points. What a dipstick.
were iPhone to iPhone rather than infotainment to iPhone, would you agree they should not have been considered in your analysis?
No.
Yes, with the caveat that because this is a novel analysis with this SD card and this infotainment, that it was demonstrated that that's the behavior. My opinions on things like that are based on testing and research and literature. And so when we have a brand new system with new data, we want to see some testing to prove it works the way we think it works. But under the assumption, then yes.
You would agree?
Yes.
If we turn to 10, please. Given, could you zoom in a little, please, on the left? Given that these data points come at 5 in the morning, or 1, 4, 4, 4, 5, 5, and 5:30, did you consider whether they would be less reliable than comparing to the triggering event, the 3-point turn at 12:23 the night before? Did you consider that?
Yes.
When you said you reviewed in your critiquing reports, did you read Mr. Burgess's report on May 8, 2025?
Yes.
Did you read in his report where he explains that this is a less reliable method to, it's a less reliable method because of the time distance between the actual event we're interested in, 1162 at 12:30, 1:43 to 48, than the 3-point turn?
Yes.
When he explains that the method of using 5:21 and 5:30 on January 29, 2022, he explains about how the information is stored in the infotainment system when it's powered back on, doesn't he?
I'm not sure.
Well, do you remember when you were reviewing his report that he explained the available call log correlation is restricted to a time frame between 5:21 and 5:30 a.m. on January 29, 2022, when the vehicle was powered on. All other calls stored in the infotainment module occurred while the vehicle was powered off, indicating those entries were synced from Ms. Reed's iPhone upon reconnecting to the system on the morning of January 29th. You considered that when you decided or formulated your critique, didn't you?
Yes.
This further indicated that the associated timestamps for those calls originated from Ms. Reed's iPhone. Did you read that?
Yes.
Relative to those first 5 columns, correct?
Yes.
This behavior was previously documented in the initial report, which is the January 30th report. Yes?
Yes.
You shrugged. I mean, I don't want you to agree with me. Do you remember it was in the January 30th report?
I don't remember how he phrased it specifically, but I think there was somewhere around there where he noted that some calls were placed while the vehicle was off. I think that's basically what it said in the first one. I don't remember specifically.
Okay. Do you agree generally, or can I give you the report? You can look and remind yourself. I want to get your best memory on this.
Sure.
What would you like me to do?
If you'd like me to look at it, I'll look at it.
Sure. Do you have a copy? Would you like me to bring it?
Do you
to
have the reports with you, sir? Okay. Do you have an extra copy for him, Mr. Brennan?
Mine is marked.
Whoops.
Just see if I can get a clean copy from the witness.
Sorry if that was used. No, I bet when this guy found out that Aperture was paid $425,000, he's like, "Damn, I got to up my rates."
I don't have a clean copy. I don't want to show you something that has my writing on it. Not that I care that you read it, but it's protocol. Okay. In discussing why this is not an effective way of matching the time, did you consider in his May 8, 2025 report, when he's talking about this method, when he says, as a result, this method yields a single reference point for potential alignment?
Yes.
And
Call logs are
why would you
discrete
not have a
points.
copy of the
I'm sorry.
report?
The call logs are discrete points for alignment. Is that?
As a result, this method yields a single reference point, referring to the 530-31.
I don't know. It sounds like it, but I don't know.
From the 5:21 a.m. to the 5:30 a.m. window, a clock speed of approximately -8 and -16 plus 21 seconds were observed between Alexa's clock and Mr. O'Keefe's iPhone clock. Did you consider that?
Yes.
This offset is measured approximately 5 hours after the time of the collision and cannot be assumed to apply to other time frames stated in the initial report. Objection.
I'm going to allow it unless, do you have, Aussie counsel sidebar?
Who's shocked? Honestly, this just reeks of Brennan being a sore loser. He really got the second-hand witnesses in this time around, and this guy went in and poked holes all through their reports. But I'm sorry, I kind of feel like the fact that your expert witnesses report, you really should have a copy of that available and ready if you're going to be questioning a rebuttal witness on it. Like, he had to have known. And it's not even like he can get mad at Jackson or Yannetti over that. It's your witness's report. You should have it available for the court if they're after it, and a copy for any witnesses. Yeah, this guy spent more time reading through that report and making notes and poking holes in it so he knows the insides and outs of it better than the guy that wrote it, which is hilarious. Paid $400,000 for them to throw away their integrity and reputation. I like that. If it wasn't potentially defamatory, I'd probably put that on a t-shirt. Aperture does not equal sign integrity or responsibility. Damn, how long is this sidebar going?
Sir, going back to my question, so you read Mr. Burgess' report, the same report that you're critiquing, and you were aware of this information, weren't you?
Yes.
And so you were aware that Mr. Burgess in his May 8th report...
I can't remember what this guy looks like, but I'll be honest, he reminds me of the actor that plays... Oh, fuck, what's his name? What's Garfield's owner's name? John. Played John in the Garfield movie. That's what I'm picturing at the moment, because that's what his voice sounds like to me.
was identifying that the section in green was the only contemporaneous information for analysis. Did you know that?
Is that how he states it specifically?
I can read it again. I just read it to you.
If you don't mind.
Okay.
So let's give him a copy.
I'm sorry, Your Honor?
Let's give him a copy, just so you have the clean copy.
There is no clean copy because Brennan wrote over it.
You can turn to page 3.
Yeah, there better be a decent reader on this.
What I read to you is where it says clock sync method 1. Do you see that?
Yes.
And this is, if you look at the second paragraph,
Yes.
I read that to you word for word. Do you see that?
Yes.
The 5:21 a.m. and 5:30 a.m. are the only two data points when that car was on January 29, 2022. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. And if you look at the last paragraph, do you agree or disagree? As a result, this method yields a single reference point for potential alignment. Do you agree with that?
No.
No.
Because you still are under the mistaken belief that
Sustain.
you still have the opinion that the first 5 rows are an infotainment to iPhone analysis.
It's presented as that way in his initial report, which is what my initial analysis was based on. And in the supplemental report, there's no further testing to say one way or the other. He just has a new opinion. So I stand by the initial analysis that I had, that those points should be included with all of the other points.
But that's not my question. My question is, you are taking the position, those first 5 calls are an infotainment to iPhone analysis?
They could be, and so I include them. I'm not saying they definitively are or not, which is why I never say there is one way to do it. That's why I say there's a whole host of ways to do it.
So you're now saying that you're not assuming that's an infotainment to iPhone analysis. Are you now saying that?
He just said no. That is not what he said. He said he's making the assumption based on, and that's what his analysis was based on. You fuckwit. Now you're just trying to twist his words to make him look like he's double backing on himself. That's not what he said. He said that it could be taken in various ways, so for the sake of caution, he's including it as yes, it is.
And I think it could be that way, but it might be iPhone to iPhone too, if those times are just copied over.
And if it was iPhone to iPhone, your analysis would be wrong.
Certain lines would go away. So if you want to call the whole analysis wrong because of that, it might be your characterization. Okay. It would change the total number of possibilities.
So if we put up chart 12, page 12, please. If you were wrong about the infotainment to iPhone analysis and those first 5 should not be considered, which part of your chart would now be wrong?
What do we have? 12 lines on the chart?
I'm sorry?
Yeah, we have 12 lines on the chart. If we decided to eliminate the lines that are based on the calls when the vehicle was off, we would be left with 4 lines on the chart.
And if we turn to
so there would still be 4 data points.
And if you could enlarge, well, I don't think you can enlarge it. If your analysis about infotainment to iPhone was wrong, you would agree those first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns should not be there, should they?
No, the positive 16 stays, the negative 21 stays, 1, 2, 8, and 20 would go away. So we'd lose 4 lines from this chart.
And the negative 16 line, that comes from information at 5:30 a.m. the next morning.
Correct.
And you would agree that that distance is not as accurate as queuing it from the 3-point turn event 1162-1.
The 3-point turn is closer in time than the call at 5:32.
And thus more reliable, wouldn't you say?
Generally.
And the negative 21, that was from 5:30 and some seconds the next morning. Same idea. Not as reliable as the 3-point turn information.
There's greater uncertainty the farther in time we get.
So when we turn to the 3-point turn information, you mentioned in Dr. Welcher's report that it was noted that the timestamp 154 was the end of the 3-point turn event, correct?
That's how he states it.
And then more information was provided when Mr. Burgess then broke down that 154 timestamp, correct?
Correct.
And when he broke down the 154 timestamp, he actually wrote a report about it, didn't he?
Yes.
He didn't just have it in his head. He put it on paper for all to see, yes?
Yes.
And in that report, not only does he break down the data, he also shows a visual of the actual data on a map, doesn't he?
He does.
Yes. Exhibit 192A. Okay, let's start with 192B, please. If you could open that up so we can see it a little better. When you look at the data he actually broke down, do you agree that instead of at the end of the 3-point turn event as timestamp 154, that actually is at the beginning of the 3-point turn? Do you agree with that?
I don't know if the points are numbered on here, so I can't tell which point he's referencing as 154.
Do you see the green circle?
Yes.
Do you see the black line?
Yes.
Does that orient you to the direction the car was traveling?
That appears to be what he's trying to convey with this chart.
And then the yellow is facing a different direction, towards Fairview, correct?
It is.
And do you see the green square rectangle?
Yes.
You think that correlates to the green circle?
That seems to be what this graph implies.
And it notes that
So ask it differently, Mr. Brennan.
Does that heading note the start of the three-point turn of O'Keefe's phone is 12:23:59?
I'm going to allow it.
That's what Mr. Burgess states in the report.
And do you have any information to suggest that's not spot on accurate?
No, I didn't do an independent analysis of the three-point turn maneuver.
And then the heading of the change, end of three-point turn to O'Keefe's home, 12:24:07. Do you have any information to suggest that's not spot on accurate?
I did not analyze the three-point turn maneuver.
And so when you look at that and break down 154, did you determine or make an analysis that 154 that was generally accepted because there is variances between items? When you break it down with more specificity, 154 is actually earlier than the three-point turn conclusion. Did you consider that?
I'm going to allow that, yeah.
I'm not sure I understand the question, if you don't mind.
You mentioned Dr. Welch's report said it relied on 154 as a timestamp for the end of the three-point turn.
Yes.
Based on Mr. Burgess's May 8th report and based on the data, which you don't contest, you now agree that 154 was not the end of that three-point turn. It was at the beginning.
Based on how Mr. Burgess presents it, I didn't do an independent analysis. So I'm not on one side with Mr. Burgess or one side with Dr. Welcher. They present independent methods.
Are you suggesting in any way it's inaccurate? Are you suggesting it is in any way inaccurate?
I'm going to allow that.
I don't have any opinions as to the individual accuracy of the methods selected by either Mr. Burgess or Dr. Welcher.
Do you have any information you'd like to add or weigh in on to dispute the accuracy of those times?
Sustained.
And let's turn to the previous exhibit so we can actually see the data that's broken down. If you could open that. The 154 timestamp, if you go to the left, please. Do you see that right above the green line?
Yes.
12:23:58. You see that?
Yes.
And then the green goes to the orange, and that's an 8-second difference, isn't it?
Yes.
And when you looked at this, you considered that this was a more detailed study of that timestamp by Mr. Burgess, right?
More detailed is, yes, that's correct.
And do you know why he did a more detailed analysis of this? Why it wasn't in the original PowerPoint?
No, I don't.
Well, you said that variances are generally accepted in the community, right?
Yes.
But then you wrote a report suggesting numbers and additions, and you submitted that report as part of the basis of your testimony, right?
I only submitted a PowerPoint. I had no report.
PowerPoint. And after you submitted the PowerPoint, isn't it fair to say Mr. Burgess then analyzed this data to be more specific after you introduced your PowerPoint?
Yes.
So can you guess why he went through a more detailed analysis?
No.
Sustained. Strike it.
In the final exhibit?
Motherfucker, he was just sitting there trying to imply that Burgess altered his report in PowerPoint as a result of this guy questioning it. We know why Burgess changed his report. Are you that worried about professional misconduct now that you're trying to get alternate theories thrown up during the trial in case someone makes a complaint? Is that really what you're doing in the middle of the trial right now, Brennan? Seriously? He was actually just trying to cover his ass in the middle of questioning.
Let's go back to the data. You said that Mr. Burgess had an 8-second range, 21 to 29 seconds, remember?
Yes.
And you were suggesting that somehow there was some uncertainty. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay. Were you guessing about his state of mind, whether he was certain or not? Do you know why he gave an 8-second range? Objection on this.
So ask it differently, Mr.
Okay. You suggested the reason why there's an 8-second range is that Mr. Burgess was uncertain. Remember saying that to this jury?
Not in those exact words, but that's what uncertainty is. Uncertainty is a range. If we don't know a specific value, we put a range around it. That's uncertainty.
This data from the green, would you agree it indicates the beginning of the three-point turn, and then the orange is at the end of the car is already in motion at 11.2 miles per hour? Objection.
I'm going to allow it. Do you agree with that?
I see speed values there. I see some headings. I can't convert GPS in my head, so I don't know.
You could have analyzed this data yourself, right? Before you came in and gave it a minute.
I could have.
But you didn't.
I did not.
Do you have any reason to test the accuracy of this data that's been broken? No objection.
I'm going to allow that.
No.
And so by giving the range of 8 seconds, you talk about looking at different values to be fair, wide range, right? even though this analysis depends on the end of the 3-point turn, would you agree it's kind of forgiving to give that 8-second range to give the benefit of the doubt by starting at the beginning of the
Sorry, it just occurred to me that I'm well and truly over the halfway point. If you're enjoying my occasional flippant commentary and snarky remarks at Brennan's haircut, make sure you hit that subscribe button, all right?
turn all the way to the end of it rather than just giving the end point?
As to that form, ask it differently, Mr. Green.
Because the 8-second range that is provided by Mr. Burgess
Hey, Nick.
coincides with the data and the 8-second range between the green and the orange.
That's where he comes up with the 8-second range, correct?
And so if Aperture's position is the matching times at the end of the event, by going back to the beginning, isn't that even more forgiving than the daytime possession?
I'm going to allow it.
Yeah, I would call it a conservative approach to use a range of values.
Right. The opposite of cherry picking, right?
Sure.
Do you have an opinion to a
I
reasonable
tell you what,
degree?
Nick, I pulled up an ad for the hairspray, hair in a can spray the other night, and oh my god, I legitimately think that's exactly what it is. I think he's been looking at himself on stream, realized how bad the bald spot looks, so he's used the old hair in a can. Honestly,
A forensic data certainty about whether text stream data provides data reflecting whether a collision actually occurred.
No.
In your opinion, to a reasonable degree of forensic certainty, is the text stream data would not reflect the collision, correct?
That's not what I said. I don't have an opinion.
And you know that there can be collisions or touching between vehicle, and it's not going to appear on the text stream data. You know that, right?
It's possible.
Possible. Did you know that the defendant's vehicle at 5:07 a.m. on January 29, 2022 bumped into a different car?
Yes.
Do you see that reflected on the text stream data?
I'm thinking back to when I reviewed the raw text stream data, and I don't remember seeing an event from that.
I can't really.
I don't remember seeing an event from that time in the text stream data.
Well, you don't remember seeing it. It's not there, is it?
I don't think it is. I don't remember seeing it. I don't think there's one.
You're not.
I was going to finish and say I don't have all of the events committed to memory. There's
You're-
19 of them.
I'm sorry.
There's 19 events. I don't have them all committed to memory.
You're not testifying or offering an opinion that there was no collision with this car that night, are you?
No.
Because if you were implying that or suggesting that or insinuating that, that would be misleading, wouldn't it?
It's not.
Sustained.
I have no further questions.
Okay.
You were asked a number of questions.
Yes.
You were asked a number of questions a few minutes ago by Mr. Brennan concerning your expertise. I'm just going to grab a pen if I could. Specifically, you were asked about your expertise regarding
thank you.
mobile data devices. Mobile devices and their data, correct?
Yes.
And were you being truthful when you indicated that you were not an expert in
Yes.
that field? Were you being truthful when you indicated that you have a certain expertise in EDR data?
Yes.
Were you being truthful when you indicated that you did review Mr. Burgess's data and Mr. Welcher's data as reflected in their reports and PowerPoints?
Yes.
Were you being truthful about your credentials?
Yes.
Have you ever lied about your credentials?
No.
You hold a bachelor's degree
Yes.
and you hold a master's degree.
I do.
You ever lied to anybody about that?
No.
Mr. So,
Going straight for
what
the
is
jugular.
The only reason you amended your PowerPoint presentation from its original version to the one that you most recently amended it to?
To include the additional analysis and data points from Mr. Burgess's supplemental report,
So-
the May 8th report.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go
The
ahead.
May 8th report.
So you amended yours because he amended his.
Correct.
You were asked just a second ago about all the text stream events that you noted on Ms. Reed's SUV, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan asked you about a specific text stream event at or around 5:07 in the morning, and whether you had something like that committed to memory, correct?
Yes.
You said, I don't have them all committed to memory, right?
I don't.
What did you say after that? Because there's how many?
It was 19 events prior to 1162-2, 19 other events.
How about after 1162?
There were a number after 1162-2. I don't have the exact count in my head.
How about after 1162, just on January 29th, going into January 30th?
There were other events.
How many?
I don't recall the exact number.
Does 11 sound right?
That it sounds plausible. I recall seeing in the chart. I recall seeing a number of events after.
Can you refresh your recollection with the chart?
It would. Thank you.
Yeah, that ain't gonna work.
Yeah, there are a lot. I would have to really use my finger to count them all.
Okay. More than 8?
Total after 1162-2?
Only on the 29th.
There aren't date stamps on these because this chart is the raw text stream data, which doesn't have timestamps.
Safe to say, there are many, right?
Yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
And again, this goes back to the question that you were asked on Mr. Brennan. I want to follow up on, in no instance were any of those related to a collision, to your knowledge, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Were any of those that you reviewed at any time, the lifetime of the vehicle, related to a collision?
None of them were triggered by a collision.
Thank you. I want to ask you a hypothetical, if I could, based on questioning by Mr. Brennan surrounding the 12/32/09 lock event. You remember him asking you about those questions, about that event?
Yes.
Your analysis was based on the time span. Let me rephrase that. Was your analysis based on Mr. Burgess's and Mr. Welcher's analyses together of a span of time between the 1162-2 text stream event or trigger event and the lock event at 12/32/09?
Objection.
So the question is that what he's considering?
Correct. In other words, was he basing his opinion or analysis on that time frame, at least in part?
So I'll let that question stand.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. If you were told that there was another interaction phone event on John O'Keefe's phone at 12/32/16 in the form of steps taken, 36 steps over the course of 83 feet, would that change your analysis or opinion in any way?
Objection.
I'll allow that in that form.
Yes.
In what way?
If the phone event moves from 12/32/09 to 12/32/16, then of the 30 possibilities I had in the chart, all of them would become positive. That would mean that interaction occurs after the end of the vehicle event every single time. Instead of, it was 25 for 30 in the original analysis, the hypothetical would change it to 30 for 30.
All of them, all 30
Damn.
of them would occur at a point in time. Let me rephrase that. All of them would reflect a scenario in which the phone interaction took place after the trigger event.
That's correct.
Thank you. If you were told, I'll give you another hypothetical, if you were told that there was a Doppler state event on the phone, pocket state event on the phone at 12/33/14, would that impact your opinion in any way?
Objection.
Sustained.
You were asked several questions about what you believed Mr. Burgess may have gotten wrong in terms of his original report and one of his original analyses dealing with bits and bytes. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Did Mr. Burgess?
Hold on.
Of course.
You need to, you know what? We have to turn the fans off.
And I'm not speaking loud enough.
Right.
I'm sorry. I'll raise my voice. I just don't want to scream over people, but I will raise my voice.
Let's try this for a few minutes.
May I start again?
That question, yes.
Thank you. You were asked about whether or not you believed that Mr. Burgess was incorrect in terms of certain analyses he undertook or reflected in his original report back in January of 2025, correct?
Correct.
As it relates to the bits and bytes, did you find that Mr. Burgess was incorrect or correct about his analysis concerning the size of the data set collected based on bits versus bytes?
He was incorrect.
Explain that to the jurors very briefly.
These are just different units a bit is a different size than a byte. And so if a size for something is listed in bits, for example, and you look at the data and assume it's in bytes, you will assume it's the wrong size.
Which Mr. Burgess did based on your review of his report, correct?
Correct.
I want to change gears and ask a different question, a series of questions about the text stream data versus the infotainment system data, specifically the timestamps associated therewith. Is there a timestamp associated with text stream data?
In this case, no.
Okay. Is there a timestamp associated with infotainment system data?
Yes.
All right. The infotainment system data, well, let me see if I can ask it a different way. Where did the 3-second delay come from? Your analysis of Mr. Burgess's review of the text stream data, or his review of the infotainment system data?
The 3 seconds came, well, fundamentally it came from the exemplar testing, where he identified, and he was actually, well, Aperture collectively in that testing identified a difference between when
Don't do anything I wouldn't do, Kathy.
button was pushed and the time that showed up in the infotainment. But they didn't actually look at, as far as I know, or at least it wasn't provided if they did, how that specifically related to the key on timer itself. But they showed that the button is pushed, there's a 3-second delay, and then the time gets logged.
When that button is pushed for the infotainment system, I'm going to rephrase again, so I'm as clear as I can. When that button is pushed for the on event, the key on event, is that like a stopwatch? Click, stopwatch starts running? Timer?
In the VCH system, yes.
Okay. Separate and apart from the VCH system, is there an infotainment system that also has a timer or a clock on it?
Has a clock.
Are those two things independent of one another?
Completely independent.
What were you doing with regard to the 3-second delay as it relates to the key on event and the infotainment system event to marry those two things together?
Right. I'm making the adjustment, or proposing that adjustment can be made, because the key on timer is going to start generally as soon as the vehicle powers on. But the infotainment, when you go and download the data, it will say, hey, I think I powered on at this time, and it turns out that time is actually 3 seconds off. So if you're going to then apply the infotainment time anywhere else to VCH data, you've got to realign the two. And that's where the 3 seconds comes from, is these are independent data sources.
Did Mr. Burgess, to your review of his, insofar as your review of his analysis, his report is concerned, did he align the two vis-a-vis the 3-second delay?
No, he did not.
With the court's permission, may we have slide 10 of the PowerPoint?
Okay.
And that is, we talked a lot about PowerPoints of Mr. DeSogra's PowerPoint. Can you highlight the table on the left, Mr. Wolf? Thank you. Did you create this table?
No.
Was this table, I don't know if you call it cut and paste or if there's some better engineering term for it, was it basically pulled from Mr. Burgess's report?
It was. It was
Did you type-
it was a screenshot.
Thank you, screenshot. Did you type a single word on this?
I did not. I added a green box.
Put a green box around it.
Yes.
You didn't type anything on this.
I did not.
You were asked a ton of questions just a few minutes ago about whether or not the column on the left and the center column were reflective of an infotainment timestamp versus an iPhone to iPhone timestamp, correct?
That's right.
Mr. Brennan asked you a bunch of questions about that left column being an iPhone timestamp, at least the top 5 rows of it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows of it. Remember that?
Yes.
Read the name that Mr. Burgess labeled that column.
Infotainment call timestamps.
So what, as an expert, what did you presume he, as an expert, was presuming? Objection.
Sustain.
What did you presume that meant to you, just to you?
Call timestamps from the infotainment.
So if anything is wrong with your analysis, would it be based on Mr. Burgess being wrong in his analysis? Objection.
Sustain.
Thank you. Same way everyone else does. Cross my legs and hope for the best.
May I have just a moment, Your Honor?
Sure. Do you need the light on?
I don't. And we can pull that down. What was your entire analysis predicated on? What was it based on? The foundation of it, as you explained your analysis to Mr. during the course of the day.
The testing by Aperture and the collective reports and PowerPoint presentations by Aperture. That would be an initial report by Mr. Burgess, an initial PowerPoint by Dr. Welcher, and a supplemental report by Mr. Burgess.
Did you change any of their data?
No.
Did you change any of their analyses?
No.
Did you explain their analyses?
Yes.
Sustained, ask it differently.
Sure. What were you trying to do in terms of your presentation, in your PowerPoint, and your presentation to the jury?
There were a number of different methodologies presented across all of those reports and PowerPoints, and sort of all in different places. So my goal was to bring all of them into one place so we could look at the totality of the data.
You were asked whether the genesis of your analysis relies on knowing the source of the calls, correct? Remember being asked that by Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
The actual genesis of your entire opinion is based on Mr. Burgess's and Mr. Welcher's analyses, correct?
That's correct.
You were also asked why you believed Mr. Burgess did a quote unquote more detailed report in May versus January of 2025. Do you remember being asked that just a few minutes ago?
Yes.
When you presented your analysis, your math, based on Mr. Burgess's January 2025 report, how many of the scenarios indicated based on his data and his analysis that the lock event occurred after the texting?
All of them.
Thank you. That's all I have, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Brennan.
So, Mr. DeSorga, this demonstrates the danger or the difficulty.
Hold on.
This is a speech, not a question.
Start the
It's
question
cross-examination.
differently.
It has to be a question.
Start. Go ahead, Mr. Brennan.
This demonstrates the difficulty in giving opinions when you don't actually study the data itself. Isn't that fair to say?
Objection.
What are you referring to with this?
Well, you're giving opinions, but you can't verify any of the data because you're not relying on your study of the data, are you?
I'm relying on expert reports.
You're criticizing somebody's report, but you yourself can't defend data that you haven't actually analyzed and broken down yourself.
I don't think that's true.
He doesn't need
When
to.
you're looking at, put on 10, please. When you're looking at someone's report, you're guessing as to what they thought or presumed if you haven't spoken to them. Fair?
I would say I'm reading the words that are in front of me and interpreting them for what they say.
When someone plugs their iPhone into a car after it turns on, and the car reads data that's on the iPhone, that data then resides on the infotainment system, correct?
There's a transfer of data.
And
Yes.
so unless you actually do the study yourself, you had no way of knowing if that information, although on the iPhone, on the infotainment system, you had no idea whether it was from an iPhone or from the infotainment. Fair?
That's right. I don't think that's.
And so when you
No.
don't actually do the work yourself, and you just presume or you guess, you could get it wrong, couldn't you?
If I had guessed, yes, but I didn't guess. I used the data in the reports and I referenced the testing that Aperture did. So I did not make a guess.
1 through 5, and you telling me right now, to a reasonable degree of data certainty, that information is based on the infotainment clock. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know.
You don't know. But if you actually did the analysis yourself rather than just Monday morning quarterback and somebody's report,
Objection.
So I'm going to strike it, ask it differently,
if
Mr.
you
Brennan.
actually did the analysis yourself, you wouldn't have to make a presumption that you'd be wrong, correct?
I don't think the analysis was possible in this case because the testing wasn't done in this case.
You don't know if the testing was done or not. You didn't do the
Objection,
testing.
Your Honor.
So I need to hear the question.
You don't know if the testing was done or not, do you?
I know it's in the reports. The testing wasn't in the reports.
Did you read Jessica Hyde's report?
No.
Did you read Ian Woods' report?
No.
You don't know if that testing was done, do you?
I don't.
Objection, Your Honor.
I'm going to let that stand.
You don't.
Next.
I do not, sir.
And so if you're wrong, your assumptions and product of that wrong.
Part of my conclusions would change. I wouldn't agree that I'm wholesale wrong.
Well, as a scientist, if they're not accurate, that would be wrong, wouldn't it?
That might be a nuanced answer.
I'm sorry?
I said that might be a nuanced answer. Frankly, I'm not sure how to give you a good answer to that
If you
question.
have the wrong data when you're doing your analysis, then the final analysis is going to be wrong if you have using the wrong data.
Yes, but it would be based off wrong information provided by your experts. God damn, I just want him to say that. I really just want him to say that.
Is that
Yes.
right? You have to be a scientist to figure that out.
Yes. That's,
Okay. If we could have Mr. Welcher's 33. If you could open that up, please. You were asked about whether the window is within the time frame of 12/32/09, the last user interaction with the phone. When you look at this data, could you go to the top, please? You see on vehicle speed, the car is moving. You see that? Could you enlarge that a little bit, please? The beginning of that data capture, the car's already moving, correct?
I see vehicle speeds, right, in those first couple of lines, yes.
Yes?
Yes, I see
Yes.
vehicle speed.
If you go to the bottom, at the end, the car is still moving, yes?
I see vehicle speeds there as well.
2361. That would indicate, in your experience with text stream data, the car is still moving, yes?
At the end of the record, there is a vehicle speed, the car is moving. That would be my assumption.
Okay. And so when you're making your conclusions that something's with or without, you're simply talking about the time of the 10 seconds of data, yes?
Yeah, everything that I've done has been referencing the end of event 1162-2, which is exactly how it's been referenced in all of the other reports.
That 10-second window, yes?
Not even the window, just the end.
No.
Everything in the actual report talks about the end of event 1162-2. So that's what I used across everything.
And when you say end of event, you're referring just to data, not the actual real life event.
Yeah, absolutely. The end of the recording.
Okay. And so after that window, 12/32/04 to 12/32/12, you were asked a question about what might have happened 4 seconds later, 12/32/16. Remember you were asked about that?
Yes.
Did you know at 12/32/16 that John O'Keefe's cell phone moved for the last time? Did you know that?
No.
And between 12/32/12, which is in the 10-second window, and 12/32/16, do you know what John O'Keefe was doing in that 4-second period?
No.
Do you know if he was walking?
No.
Do you know if he was crawling?
No.
Do you know if he was falling?
No.
You don't know.
I do not know.
Thank you.
Okay.
12/32/16 wasn't just that Mr. O'Keefe's phone was moving, there were steps there, correct?
I didn't review the phone data, so I don't know.
Did you review anything to indicate that steps were taken over the course of 3
Objection.
Anything
So
else?
that's sustained.
You were asked just a second ago, what about the data? What was wrong? Then you'd be wrong, correct?
Generally, yes.
Garbage in, garbage out. Basic scientific postulate, correct?
Generally, yes.
You're relying on whose data?
Mr. Burgess' data and Dr. Welcher's data.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. DeSoto. So you can step down. I wanna
Close
see
enough.
counsel.
That'll do.
Jurors, feel free to stand up and stretch if you'd like.
Brennan really couldn't just get. Sometimes when you're litigating, less is more. Okay, he didn't need to come in the second time around with the recross there. The points that he was trying to make, I think he did it in the original cross, and I don't think he made any friends with the jury there. I genuinely believe that you're right, the condescending tone, the manner in which he went about it. Like when someone else starts talking and it actually feels, you get that relief where it feels like you've just put aloe vera on sunburn, you know that you've done a bad job, basically. I'm hoping that the jury just saw him for the bully that he is. Because he went around and around in circles, basically asking the same question, trying to get the same answer out of the witness. Poorly. Not only did he not get his point across, but it was to a point where I felt he was bordering on badgering. No, probably no Macca's tonight. A, I've got more stew, and B, I'm pretty sure. Actually, it'll depend what Lady Overlaw'd's done. Actually, hang on.
All right, jurors, we did that to have me decide whether I'm going to let you go home now or not, and I'm going to let you go home. So that 5 minutes that just means that you get to go home, because we know we'll be longer. We don't want to do this to you, okay? So we'll break for the day. I have to give you
Ooh.
the same caution.
Arguing
Please do not
motions?
discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any independent research or investigation into this case.
Would I be able to get away with questioning like that? Look, in the specific way that he did it, no. Honestly, I would think I'd get pulled up by the judge. I do think that part of that is because of the bias of Bev. I also think it's because, bad as it sounds, I don't know what it is, but here in Australia, we are also expected to be held to a slightly higher professional standard from what I've seen in the American courts. For example, like, if you're getting into it with someone else, you still have to refer to opposing counsel as my learned friend or something along those lines. You've still got to be respectful. The tone would absolutely not have in any way flown, in my personal opinion. So, all right, hang on. Google, dial hot tits. Hello, hot ass. What are you doing?
Oh, just being sexy, you know?
Just being sexy?
Yeah.
Love it. Just wanted to double check. Are we having boiled mince for dinner or what?
Yeah, darling.
Really?
Yeah, but I'm going to puree it as well because I want it to be nice and soft.
You're going to make me eat boiled mince baby food?
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm going to boil the crap out of it. So I'm going to blend it as well.
Are you at least going to put some veggies in it or something?
Oh, it'll have some herbs and spices in it just to take away the blended mince flavour. I'll look after you, don't worry.
Dude, what the fuck are you doing? Fucking moron. No, someone at the Werribee turn just, like, I had right of way, but then they sped up to try and get in front of me, so I braked to let them in, and then they braked. Fucking moron. And the annoying thing is that neither of the cameras would have caught that.
Oh, well, that's not good, is it?
No. Why was the prosecution witness allowed to elaborate? Because Judge Bev is biased, and she gave them significantly a lot more rope than the defense. No, but in all seriousness, do we have something planned for dinner tonight or not?
Yeah, I've got the stuff out for you in fridge. You stir fry.
Oh, the black bean stir fry?
Yeah.
Wait, it wasn't seriously the black bean. Because I had that for dinner last night when we got China Bar.
I don't know which one I got out for you. You got two.
Yep.
I got one of them. I don't know which one it was.
Huh, might be having the same meal 2 nights in a row. Yay! Alright. Okay.
But you didn't have that last night. Last night you had your man stew shit.
Yeah, but we had China Bar for lunch.
Oh.
That's alright, I'll sort it out when I get home. Point is, I just want to double check. You haven't already gotten the Munchkin, like, chibi nuggies or anything, have you?
No, I have not made the Munchkin anything as yet.
Alright, well, that's fine. I'm only 10 minutes from home anyway.
What's wrong? Daddy's almost home. Oh, you're right. Mum's kind of chopped liver. Right.
Mum's kind of chopped liver. Huh.
And Dad is not chopped liver, apparently. I couldn't sit here on my laptop, sweetheart. I'm still working.
It's 6:15. Why are you still working?
When do I stop working?
Apparently when you get my streams restricted.
Oh, was that my fault, was it?
Apparently.
Oh, come on. Where most people do.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I'm fully aware you're wearing more clothes than some people that I know, but apparently it was like just too much skin for YouTube. Sorry, you cut out. What was that? Arms for the poor.
I didn't think about clothes that I usually wear.
All right.
Morons.
Yep. It's all right. Doesn't matter. All right, I'm on Snades now. I'm probably going to have to do another stream later on tonight because they're doing motions and I don't know how long is left in the stream, but I don't want to get stuck an hour behind.
Well, you do you, darling. I'm still freaking working, so...
Oh, well, I suppose I can just come in and go straight into the office.
Why would you want to do that, though?
Well, I mean, if it's only like 40 minutes, at least I can get it out of the way.
I'll
have a look when I pull the car over.
Let's organise dinner and stuff, okay? Otherwise, it's going to be too late until we can get munching into bed. I don't like that idea.
Okay, fine. Jesus Christ, dude, can you get over? The fuck? Some people just...
You can't drive tonight, darling.
It ain't me.
Oh, sure.
See you, Canton.
Remember, I can watch your stream and look at how you're driving.
Look, you can, but you shouldn't. Alright, I'll see you in a few minutes. You watch, she's not even going to notice that I'm gone for a few minutes.
If you happen to see, hear, or read anything about the case, please disregard.
Yeah, alright, we don't care. You and your bloody admonitions. How's the light look? I went out and bought like a low-powered LED light that I could just strap to the thing so that it, like, instead of the really bright ring light. It's not too bad for me, so I'm hoping it does at least a little bit to illuminate me. Yeah, it's just gone 6:05 on Monday for me. To be honest, I didn't say it to her, but I'm pretty sure it's because I smacked her on the ass and did the thing with the boobs. I think it was my fault. But it's okay, because it was on the backup channel anyway. Thought Hot Tits would be a wing place. Look, to be honest, I was trying to think of a nickname for her. Like something that is a little bit appropriate, but I mean, Sugar Tits already stole Sugar Tits, which to be fair is what I call her. So I got to think of something else. I mean, I can go with Hot Stuff, but I mean, her phone is stud muffin.
Macy.
So you guys have looked at the court and raise your right hand.
You solemnly swear the evidence you give the court in the case now and hearing to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Thanks, you take Steve.
Thank you. You're welcome. I know this is a reluctant opportunity. There is a witness outside. Just to get her.
Sure. Is she right outside the door?
Last time I checked.
Do you mind, sir? If you can stay right there.
Sure.
And it'll just be a few minutes, okay? Miss Gianetti, when do you need this witness back? Monday?
Mel boobs. I could call them Mel boobs.
So I'm going to need her at a microphone. Do you have one on council table there? So the podium, or one of those back where Eugenia is. Thank you.
Whatever that was. Ran over something.
No, there's a microphone a little closer. We're just follow this.
Thank you so much.
Hi, good
Oh,
afternoon.
Bev.
Hello.
Could you tell me your name, please?
Kelly Dever.
And Ms. Dever, you've been summoned here. I think I saw you earlier. You've been here all day.
Yes.
All right. So we're not going to reach you today,
Oh,
unfortunately.
it's this
But you
chick.
were summoned to be here.
Yes.
All right. So that summons is still good until we reach you. So you're going to have to come back Monday morning. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you agree to do so?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll see you Monday morning. Be here before 9. Okay.
Will do.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Go ahead, Mr. Lessie.
Yeah.
Oh, she's an idiot.
That was a big compliment, Your Honor. Thank you. Good afternoon. So would you please state your name and spell your last name?
Jonathan Diamandis, Diamandis.
You've also been here all day.
Yes,
Sorry for making you wait.
no problem.
Do you know former State Trooper Michael Proctor?
I do.
How do you know him?
I've known him since middle school, probably the 6th grade.
Grew up with him, essentially?
Grew up with him, been friends for 30 years.
Okay, and if you just keep your voice up,
Sure, yeah.
I'm sure other people can hear you, but this
So
old
can
guy.
we turn off the fans and the air conditioner? Are they all off? We're just going to do that so that we can get through this a little bit.
Absolutely, sure.
Much better, thank you. So you say you've known him since middle school, elementary school?
Yes,
Graduated high school with him?
yes,
And are you friends after high school as well?
yes,
Do you have his cell phone number in your phone?
I do.
Have you texted with him over the years?
I have.
In fact, were you on a group text chain with him that lasted a number of years?
Yes,
I would like to show you a document, sir, and I'm going to ask you to read it to yourself, familiarize yourself with it, and then when you're done, look up at me. Okay,
Okay.
may I approach?
Yes.
Would you like this mark for identification first, Your Honor?
Yes.
Is it an NNN for identification?
And I'll do it back to the witness. Thank you.
thank you.
35 minutes. All right. How about we just skip through him reading, and I'll try and skip to. See if we can get through this before I have to head home.
That I grew up with.
Since then,
Whoop, too
went to
far.
high school with?
Not all the same high school, but the same time. Some of us went to different schools.
And you were friends during that era?
Yes.
And you've remained friends for how many years since then?
I mean, we've been friends for 30 plus years, probably.
Do you know precisely when that text chain started?
I do not know when the text chain started.
Months, years?
Years, definitely years.
And that's a portion, in other words, there's a start time and an end time to that, but the text chain started before the start time that's listed on that document?
That's correct.
Now, I'd like to ask you about 5 different categories of information that allow you to identify the text chain. First of all, directing your attention to page 1. That is an unredacted version of this. Do you see your phone number on page 1?
I do.
And is that accurate in terms of your phone number?
It is.
Do you have a passcode on your phone?
On my phone, yes, I do.
And have you had that for years?
Yes,
So as of January of 2022, you would have had a passcode to get into your phone, correct?
correct.
With regard to the typing of text messages, you didn't appear to be too active on this thread, is that correct?
Not from what I see here.
Did you see one entry that you actually did text?
Yes, one.
Okay, and I think these page numbers, they're all numbered. Could you direct us to the page where you actually chimed in?
Belandris Proctor is the main lead investigator from the Massachusetts State Police, the one that basically said that the homeowner wasn't going to cop any of it because he's a Boston cop, and more or less was the one that decided within 24 hours that they were going to frame Karen Reed. And I think that they're about to read a text message that says, yeah, we were going to pin it on the girl. I can't wait for that to get read out in open court.
And if I suggested to you, it might be 4 from the end. And you don't have to read the actual text, sir. I just want to.
Sure. I'm just trying to locate it.
This document?
February 2nd, 2022, 12:38 p.m.
Okay. And what you
I
type.
have a different copy.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's to the record. It's on page.
What's the whole page number? So the last two digits.
Reading what is typed there. Does that sound consistent with something you might chime in a text message, a text chain of this sort?
I mean, it could be. I have no memory of actually typing it, but
sure.
All right, I'll be honest. This is all foundation to prove that he recognizes the text chain, that it's legitimate and that sort of thing. So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because all he's doing is laying foundation for it. And it's very clear that this guy understands and knows that it's his. And it's more just for procedural point at this point because they want to be able to introduce it as evidence. Oh, the townhouses. That's someone that architectural
that's not
license.
something.
Do you know as Chip?
Michael Proctor.
Now, going back to the first page, there are a number of other phone numbers there. Have you checked your phone prior to taking the stand today to match those phone numbers with other friends of yours?
Yes.
And first,
I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah. So let's not, if he recognizes it, I don't want to put names out.
Oh, I don't either.
It is.
Okay.
Okay. You see, I'll list the last 2 digits of the phone numbers that don't have.
Okay, so this is all irrelevant.
Okay, starting with the phone number that ends in 5. Got a friend of yours who was on the text chain?
That's me.
Oh, I'm sorry. That is you,
Yeah.
of course.
It is.
And with regard to 93, same question, friend of yours on the text chain?
Yes.
And 46, them as being also friends of yours who were on the text chain.
I do.
And then finally, with regard to the other one on those phone numbers over the years,
Yes.
and also focusing on the one that's identified as local user. Having read that text chain, were you able to determine who local user is?
Yes.
And who is that?
Michael Proctor.
And was that by the content of the message?
Right. So they've taken Proctor's text messages from his phone, stuck them in front of this guy saying, you can verify that these are from Proctor, can't you? And he said, yes, I was part of this text chain. I understand that local user is Michael Proctor. He's the one saying these things. Gotcha.
Messages that Michael Proctor typed that you recognized it?
Yes.
And with regard to whether this is a complete, accurate record of what it purports to be, what is your testimony in that regard?
I believe this to be a record of our text chain for this period of time.
Appears to be accurate and complete.
It does.
If I may have a moment, Your Honor.
Okay.
Chain that you read fairly and accurately represent the circumstances of the conversation that was going on?
Yes.
Nothing.
Mr. Brennan?
Good morning.
Morning.
Okay. I'm interested to see what Brennan's going to say here because this isn't for the guy to actually provide any sort of testimony. This is to verify that the messages are directly from Proctor. I cannot wait to hear what the messages actually say.
Good afternoon.
Do you have an independent memory of any of the text conversations in the package that you reviewed?
I do not have a memory of this happening.
Thank you.
Nothing on that.
All right. So, sir, I'm going to ask you to, you're all set.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you to step down.
Okay. Thank you.
Your Honor, given that unfortunately this witness was not reached by the jury today, I would like him recognized as well.
He has counsel here with him, right? Does he have counsel here with him? All right. Sir, you'll make sure your client is here when we need him?
I will do so, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you.
My name is Thomas Campbell. My office is in Boston.
And I'll speak with Mr. Campbell in terms of an appropriate time of day. He's been very cooperative.
Does that help?
So, sir, you can leave.
Thank
I'm
you.
going to leave my
And,
driver's on. But...
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. We'll see you. We'll let you know when we need you back. It's probably going to be Monday first thing.
Understood.
Thank you.
Sir, watch your step coming down.
This is admissible. No, I want to hear you as to why this is admissible. Why this is admissible.
She's looking for an excuse. You can already tell.
So, Your Honor, with regard, I assume we're just dealing with authenticity at this point?
No, we're dealing with both. You're the proponent of the testimony, so let's deal with both.
Okay, all right. So regarding authenticity, Your Honor, there are several ways that are either independent or connected with each other by which or through which a party can authenticate text messages. The majority of the case law out there are defendants having appealed judges' decisions to admit text messages offered by the Commonwealth, and the majority of the case law that exists affirm judges' allowance of text messages into evidence. The Commonwealth filed a memorandum in opposition to these text messages being admitted, and not one of the cases cited by the Commonwealth apply here or are appropriate. The case of Commonwealth versus Purdy, in that case, the Commonwealth introduced text messages from computers seized at a massage parlor. The defendant objected that there was no evidence that he had authored any of the, these actually were emails, not text messages, any of the emails that were admitted into evidence. Nobody saw him do it. Nobody saw him type it, and nobody discussed any of the emails with him. But the SJC cited a longstanding rule, including Rule of Evidence 901B1-4. Evidence may be authenticated by direct or circumstantial evidence. And the circumstantial evidence is essentially what we covered here in court today: the appearance of the electronic communications, the content, the substance, internal patterns, or other distinctive characteristics. Commonwealth versus Welch. It was a murder case where a boyfriend killed his girlfriend, was charged with killing his girlfriend, was convicted. The Commonwealth sought to introduce text messages between them, and various text messages from the victim's cell phone were admitted into evidence because, for one reason, they referenced the defendant's distinctive nickname. And in this case, we have a text chain with 3 nicknames, all of whom the witness recognized as being his friends. We have more to authenticate this text chain than in any case I have seen, and also more than in any case the Commonwealth has cited. In this case, we have an identification of every phone number pursuant to the last 2 digits. We have an identification of Michael Proctor's message relating to the contents. We have evidence of the witness's cell phone requiring a passcode, meaning that in order for his phone to be active in this chain, he would have had to have unlocked the phone with the passcode. And he testified that what was in the content of the message that he identified as being his is consistent with something that he would have said. And not only that, but he adds a 4th nickname, that being Chip, that being Michael Proctor. The Commonwealth, with regard to Commonwealth versus Welch, which is again cited in their memorandum, this opposition, Your Honor, they state what appear to be rock solid black and white legal principles, but when you scratch below the surface and you actually read the case stands for nothing in terms of what they've represented it to be. They stated that in Welch, the court must find that each and every communication was authored by the individual member of the group. That's just plain false. The case doesn't say that at all. It's nowhere in that case. And in fact, the messages were let in, again, because of the circumstances and the content of the messages. Commonwealth versus Raposa, another case that they cite. The defense sought to call a neighbor to testify that he had seen the victim alive after the defendant had confessed to having shot him, another murder case. The problem was that the neighbor denied making the statement, so the defense wanted to call the neighbor for the sole purpose of impeaching him with his prior statement that he supposedly made to the police and use that statement as substantive evidence. So in that case, the defendant wanted to use an out-of-court statement for its truth. It was rank hearsay. That case had nothing to do with text messages or statements used to show state of mind or electronic communications, but somehow it makes its way into the Commonwealth's memorandum. Commonwealth versus Rajiv R., which is the second to last case that they cite, that dealt with a search warrant done at a juvenile's home. The police officer in that case was allowed to testify to what he was seeking, which was the goal of the search warrant, a firearm allegedly in the juvenile's possession. And he was also allowed to testify to what the juvenile's mother did during the execution of the search warrant, which is she directed the police to the juvenile's bedroom. The Commonwealth cited that case to say you can't use hearsay when trying to prove a Bowden defense or present a Bowden defense. That case had nothing to do with Bowden. The evidence was admitted to explain what the police were doing in the home. So it's a situation where, there are times when, the police stop somebody on the street, or the police get a search warrant and then they show up at a home. And rather than just have them magically appear at the home with the warrant, the police are allowed to give some circumstances as to how they got there. Nothing to do with Bowden. It's just giving the jury a fuller picture. Yet it was represented to you by the Commonwealth that, geez, this is a Bowden issue and you can't use hearsay to present a Bowden defense. Commonwealth versus Sullivan, exact same situation. Testimony was admitted about DNA on evidence matching the defendant's DNA from a national database. The Commonwealth cites 3 principles. It's almost like they're setting a standard down that the court is supposed to follow with 3 factors. But again, none of the 3 principles that the Commonwealth cites is found in Sullivan at all. They're not even mentioned in the case. They're simply made up and put in a memo to ask this court to do something that the case does not support. And again, it has nothing to do with Bowden. So now we come to the arguments about the fact that the Commonwealth is claiming that these statements are hearsay. They're not. These statements contain insults
How the hell
of
are
my
they
client.
hearsay?
I'll be kind and just mention the word.
So I read them.
Yes. Okay. Well, I mean, Your Honor, if you're going to allow this into evidence, I'll stop talking. Otherwise, I have to make my argument.
I understand what you mean by insults.
Okay. So I won't even mention them then. The Commonwealth is essentially arguing that we're offering these text messages to show that the insults were true. That's a silly argument. Obviously, we're not. Hearsay has 3 components. These are all statements out of court. None of them are offered for the truth of the matter asserted. None of them. Even the statement when Michael Proctor says that the homeowner is not going to catch any grief because he's a Boston cop. We don't know if that's true or not true. It's offered to show that Michael Proctor believes it's true. He's the lead investigator in the case. He has input into the case. He can decide who's investigated or not investigated. At least that's our argument. It's all consistent with our defense. It's offered to show his state of mind. Everything that he says is offered to show his state of mind and to show his bias. He, as the lead investigator, his bias in what he does or doesn't do. And in fact, Mr. Brennan said at sidebar earlier when we started this conversation that Bowden deals with what was done or what was not done. We're entitled to explore what was not done and not done, and we're entitled to explore why. We have evidence of why. We have Michael Proctor's words about why he did or didn't interview people separately, why he waited, for instance, a year and a half to interview a plow driver who was out there on January 29th, why he treated some people with kid gloves and other people with brass knuckles. He's stating it in these text messages. She's going to go down for this. We're going to pin it on the girl. We're going to make sure that
There it
there's
is.
serious charge.
Boom. In the text messages, we're going to pin it on the girl. Holy shitballs. If Bev does not allow these text messages in, I'm in no way a proponent of this, but I would fully expect those text messages to become public knowledge. And I'm sorry, but I genuinely believe this would be a massive appealable issue if there is a statement specifically from the lead investigator of the case to other individuals that they are going to pin the murder on Karen Reed. How is that in any way? That is, it's so probative that it doesn't matter how prejudicial it is at this point. That is an insane text message to be coming from the lead investigator on the case.
Charges. She's effed. Those are what he says about, those are the statements he makes about Karen Reed in the infancy of this investigation. And to the contrary, is anything going to happen to Brian Albert? Nope. He's a Boston cop too. These are all statements about Michael Proctor's state of mind. The prosecutor and I have been over the statements. I realize he's objecting to the admission of these statements. I don't think he has a legal argument that passes muster to do that, but should the court allow them in, we're agreed on everything except for 3 entries, which I think we could deal with pretty quickly. And unless the court has questions, I'd rest on that.
No, but I'd appreciate a copy of whatever you've agreed upon.
Okay.
So
It's been a long day for staff, so I don't need to sit here and go through each one. Just get me a copy of what you've agreed to.
Okay, so this is the only marked copy. I'm happy to hand it to
God,
you.
she's gonna.
And you can take care of it and email it in.
We'll do that. Thank you.
All right. So, Mr. Brennan, I'd like to hear you on admissibility. I haven't decided admissibility, and I'll hear you on authentication.
This is gonna piss me off.
On the first issue of authenticity, this witness has no memory of any of the text messages. I think it's fair to conclude he's on the text message string. He recognizes the people on it, but there is no authenticity.
He's authenticated the fact that the text chain exists and that it. I don't care if he doesn't have memory of those specific text messages. You know what? I have text messages with my wife going back 15 years. Do you think that I would have memory of every single text message on that thread?
If he doesn't recognize them. The person that could best authenticate these text messages is Michael Proctor. This witness does nothing as far as identifying the individual text messages and whether they're reliable.
They're trying to goad the defense into calling Proctor. I mean, I still personally believe that they should, because I think that Jackson and or Yannetti should be experienced enough to be able to handle that. I can understand why they don't want to, but I still believe that they should call him. And I think it's very important that they get him up on the stand and they say, hey, by the way, did you send this text message saying that you're going to pin it on the girl? Who's the girl? I declined to answer. Was it my client? I declined to answer. Did you go through her phone looking for nudes? I declined to answer.
Whether there's been any additions, deletions, whether in some of the substance this is part of the conversation. Notably, I think, according to the questioning by Attorney Yannetti, he's made one comment at the end of the string that really has nothing whatsoever to do with the text messages that are at issue. So authenticity, I don't believe this witness reaches that conclusion for them. Regarding admissibility, I do not dispute that in the right context, these text messages are admissible. If there is an investigator in the case that makes derogatory remarks about an accused, I can't say that doesn't go to bias, nor do I reject the idea that it shows an unfairness or a motivation. But really, you need to put that in context, and I think Attorney Yannetti highlighted that. He says that this is not hearsay, it's how he thought, or whether it affected a particular part of the investigation. It may have, it may not have. Even if he denies that it affected his investigation,
come on.
It's still an appropriate question to ask just because that type of negative commentary, inappropriate commentary was made. But to explore the state of mind and put it in context, you need to ask the person that you're accusing of having the bias, because perhaps it did affect the bias. Perhaps the person was very biased and made decisions based on that animus. Or perhaps the person made negative comments but had nothing whatsoever to do with the investigation. It is surmised to say because
he was the chief, he was the lead investigator on the case. Any negative comments that he makes about the defendant, about the case, I'm sorry, saying you're going to pin it on her, or that, you know, the Boston cops aren't going to cop any flack or anything like that, I'm pretty sure that's clear as to state of mind. I get the argument that he's trying to make, and he's basically trying to railroad them into calling Proctor. Which, given that my understanding is no one can find him, that would be a bit problematic.
these comments were made, a witness was not investigated, or there was some other amorphous, undefined ill that happened. That's the whole reason why the witness who made the comments should be confronted with the comments they made so the jury can fairly assess, is this relevant? Is it material? And what is the value of it? I am not opposed to the admission of bias against a witness, especially a police officer, but it should be against that witness because they need to have the opportunity to admit, deny, define, accept, and explain. By putting these messages in with sidestepping, calling Mr. Proctor, they are trying to gain the advantage of putting information in front of the jury that has no context, suggesting it has a value that has not been defined.
You mean the way you did by putting Brian Higgins on the stand Sorry, by avoiding having to. Oh, fuck it. Never mind. You mean the way you did by getting Brian Higgins's messages and all that kind of crap involved?
And then, as Mr. Yannetti just did, making an argument that because the comment was merely made, that therefore there was a consequence, and specify a consequence where there's no factual basis to conclude. Because he made a derogatory comment, he didn't investigate or speak to a plow driver for a year and a half. That defeats the purpose of finding the value for which this is being omitted. I do have some issue that it's really not under the context of Bowden, because this doesn't have to do with the adequacy of a police investigation. It has to do with bias. And that purely is the state of mind of the person who made the comment. I would not get in the way of confronting the witness about their bias if they were called to the stand. But
this is his whole thing. Oh, I'm not trying to prevent them from introducing evidence, but here's 5 motions as to why they shouldn't be able to present that evidence. This guy talks out the side of his
to
mouth.
put it in this way invites speculation, it invites manipulation, and it invites a party on either side to portray this in a way that is not factually viable. It will be distracting, confusing for the jury, and it could be unfair for either side, because it will lead to arguments about what it means without a factual basis. And so my position is, I don't necessarily disagree that it's relevant, but it should come through Michael Proctor. And if the defense wants the value, they should call Michael Proctor.
Okay. Mr. Yannetti, do you want to respond?
I know we're the hours late, Your Honor. I won't belabor the points. I would state the following very succinctly as I can, which is, yes, it goes to bias, but it also goes to the adequacy of the evaluation. The two concepts are intertwined. If you're biased or exhibit bias, the defense should be able to argue that the investigation was not adequate. I would note Mr. Brennan is not sitting at defense counsel table in this case. We appreciate the offer to help us with strategy about which witness we should call, but that's solely the province of the defense to determine which witness we want to use to authenticate and admit text messages. That's our choice. And we should not be deprived of that choice because Mr. Brennan thinks there's a better witness that should have introduced the text messages. There is no rule. There's no best witness rule in this case. I believe my co-counsel has already made that argument in another circumstance. His arguments, Mr. Brennan's arguments, go to the weight, not the admissibility. He is fully entitled to cross-examine this witness about all of the points that he raises. And in conclusion, Your Honor, he complains that we have not called Michael Proctor. I think that's the whole impetus for this objection, so that we will call a witness that they do not have confidence in to call themselves. It's unheard of in a murder case that you don't call the lead investigator, but that's what's happened in this case. We should not be forced to call Michael Proctor so that Mr. Brennan can then cross-examine him and lead him through basically his entire closing argument. He is entitled to call Mr. Proctor in rebuttal. He has every right to call Mr. Proctor again. I would rest on that. Thank you.
Okay. And just the very last thing, there's Commonwealth's motion for reciprocal discovery. Is there any objection to that?
Yes, it's not in compliance with Rule 14.
Okay.
We don't have any written communications with Ms. Dever, and they've asked for all oral communications to be reduced to writing, to be turned over as not in keeping with
All right. So you're saying two different things. So you don't, this information doesn't exist because she has not had communications with you, right?
Written communications do not exist. I'm not saying anything else. Written communications do not exist. They also ask secondarily for all oral communications to be reduced to writing. We have no obligation to do that. We have no intention.
All right. So I'll get a decision out on that before 4:30, and I'm going to do a little more research on the text messages. Want to be heard, Mr. Brennan?
I thought you were.
Okay, I'm going to spend the weekend trying to find a way to weasel out of that and either force you to call Proctor or admit the messages altogether.
Standing up, Your Honor. No.
Oh, no. Okay. All right. I'll see everybody Monday morning. Thank you.
Please.
All right, so there we go. That was Friday. We've got a few hours before Monday's trial stream starts. Obviously, I'll be hitting it first thing in the morning. But just in general, those text messages have to come in. I don't think the Bev can rule that they're not allowed to come in. And Yannetti's right. There's no rule specifying who can authenticate something. They found someone that they could put on the stand to say, yes, these text messages are legitimate. It's very much not hearsay because there's statements about Karen Read in there. And Gut punch. Crossy cross. If she forces them to try and call Proctor in order to validate that, I don't know that that of itself will be an appealable issue, but it certainly will be it will certainly be underhanded, and I'd be including it in an application for judicial misconduct based on everything that she's done in this case. So many inappropriate things that it's not funny. But anyway, peeps, I'm going to get out of here so I can go home, have some dinner, spend some time with the family. I don't know if we'll be back later. I'm trying to stay up later at night, so I'm sleeping through the night because I keep going to bed at like 10 and I'm waking up at 5 in the morning. I sound like an old man. But anyway, if you're new around here, feel free to hit the sub button. I give some colorful commentary on stuff like this. I will be covering the Erin Pattinson mushroom killer case after it's over so that I don't get in trouble with the courts. I'll be doing a nice deep dive into that. I understand she was on the stand today, so that's very interesting for me to have a look at when I get home. Yeah, and basically on the days when I'm not covering a trial, we try and do some fun stuff. Court videos, body cam videos, crazy Karen videos. But as always, people, please remember, you are not a piece of shit. You have value to Nuclear Trooper Society, especially for being here. But as always, people, stay healthy, wealthy, and wise, and I will catch you all on the flip side.
And again, on your way out, please do me the favor and hit the like and subscribe button if you're so inclined. It costs nothing. It's absolutely free, and we'll be friends forever. Bye now.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias, and agenda to control exactly what people think. This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This shit, I'm out. Fuck this shit, I'm out. No thanks. Don't mind me. I'ma just grab my stuff and leave. Excuse me, please. Fuck this shit, I'm out. Nope. Fuck this shit, I'm out. Alright then. I don't know what the fuck just happened, but I don't really care. I'ma get the fuck up out of here. Fuck this shit, I'm out.